What is up, YouTube? Welcome to PanFro Games. In today's video, we have 15 updates for the Nintendo Switch 2 that you must know about regarding the tariff situation and the price, the games on the system, and many other updates. Of course, guys, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to become a channel member by hitting that join channel member button below. Our headline story is Nintendo gains time to prep Switch 2 debut with a tariff pause, written by Bloomberg. And this is really nice. We have 90 days for most U.S. trading partners to negotiate with the U.S. About their trade deals with the country. But in the short term, this is really good for Nintendo Switch 2 buyers because roughly a third of the Switch 2 units are assembled in Vietnam, which means they're only facing the universal tariff of 10% that was initiated. And Nintendo actually might just eat that 10% cost. Now, if you don't know what a tariff is essentially a regressive tax on us, the people who are buying it. However, I do feel like Nintendo doesn't want to increase the price any further from $450 or $500, depending on what SKU of the Switch 2 that you buy. And there is a chance that they might just eat that, take it into their profits. Now, if they do increase the prices by 10%, I don't think it's going to be really that much more. And I don't expect a $600 Switch 2, at least not for the first year, because Nintendo is really ramping up their production in Vietnam. Now, if you can look at this graph here, you can see that in February of 2025, game console exports to the US from Nintendo's factory in Vietnam, they have sent a lot, 383K in January, and then 725K in February. Now, we don't know what the March numbers are. We're in the middle of April right now. And of course, we have May and then early June. And then the 90 days will be about up in June. So that's not bad, honestly. I could definitely see them if they're getting like about 1 million a month, because I assume they're going to be ramping up the production out here because of the 90-day pause. Then, you know, we could probably be getting 4 to 5 million Switch 2s just hanging out in the US. And hopefully the tariffs don't increase more in Vietnam, and we can actually have a really good smooth launch for the Switch 2, but also we could have a smooth first year. Now, after that, who knows? Because if it goes back to the 46%, this probably was going to go up by 50 to 100 bucks, which is why I was thinking $600 would have absolutely been horrible. But this graphic here should honestly make you feel a lot better about day one on the Switch 2. Now, we do know that the pre-orders in Canada were also paused. The reason why they did this is they were probably suspecting that people in the US would either go over the border or order them online in Canada and have them shipped to the US and essentially take away from the Canadian supply because they were still having their pre-orders, but now they're not. So no one in North America is having pre-orders at the moment. It's very unfortunate, but it is what it is. We don't have any news when the pre-orders are coming back. I have a feeling we'll probably hear an update in a week or two, and hopefully we'll be able to get our pre-orders in, because I honestly want to get the system on day one, especially the Mario Kart bundle, because that's going to be the best deal. You know, you get the system and you get the game, 500 bucks, essentially a $50 version of Mario Kart World. Now, we got some other big confirmation this morning. Nintendo confirms no download codes needed for physical Switch 2 game edition. So this was definitely a big issue people were running into, right? People were thinking the Switch 2 versions of like the Switch 1 games like Zelda, Kirby, and Super Mario Party Jamboree were essentially just Switch 1 games that had a download code in the box that would upgrade them to the Switch 2 version. And let's say you like gave them to your friend or you traded them in, then those cartridges would just revert back to Switch 1. And then there was no way for you to play the Switch 2 version of that game with all the upgrades. Because some of these games do have some upgrades, like Mario Party Jamboree is getting the Jamboree TV. Kirby is getting the Starcross World content as well. So some of these updates are actually pretty major content expansions in general. But here's a statement that Nintendo said to Vooks here. A physical version of Nintendo Switch 2 game editions will include the original Nintendo Switch game and its upgrade pack all on the same game card. They are exclusively Nintendo Switch 2 game cards with no download code. Alternatively, some publishers may release Nintendo Switch 2 game editions as download codes and physical packaging with no game card release. So at least for first party Nintendo stuff, anything published by Nintendo, you're going to be okay. That's just going to be a Switch 2 game. They will not run in your Nintendo Switch 1, but they will run in your Nintendo Switch 2 with all the upgrades. Now, if this is, let's say, Capcom, and for some reason, I don't know, Capcom is like, hey, you want to play Street Fighter, but you have like a code in there to upgrade it. Well, if someone uses that code, it won't work. That's an example. I mean, not that Capcom is doing that, but essentially, we don't have to worry. And I don't think any other publisher will do it because it would sort of be horrible in general if they did do that. Now, there is some backlash happening. I mean, there's, to be fair, a decent amount of backlash because all this stuff is very expensive. But something that should have not cost any money is the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Now, if you don't remember, the Welcome Tour was the video game that looks like a PDF manual that they made into some sort of interactive demo, but it's costing $10. It's digital only as well. So a lot of people are thinking this should be free, especially when you compare this to the PS5 pack-in of Astro's Playroom, where it is a full-fledged 3D platformer that has, 5-6 hours of content in it, shows off all the features of the controller and the console, and it was free, and it was actually a really good game. Nintendo, on the other hand, is charging $10 for their version of that game, but it is just, you walk and you talk to menus, and there's like little mini games, and it's $10, which is insane, absolutely insane. But, Reggie, who used to be the president of Nintendo US, he is the reason why the Wii Sports pack-in was everywhere but except in Japan. So if you bought a Wii and you're not in Japan, then you got a Wii Sports game with it. And that was all because of Reggie. Everyone was pissed at Reggie. Miyamoto did not want to do this either, but hey, that's why we got Wii Sports for free. Reggie is the reason why we got it. So there you go. Reggie is the hero. And without Reggie there, it looks like we're not getting any more freebies, unfortunately, from Nintendo. And I do think that's very sad. And I do think it's a little bit, anti-consumer for sure, especially because I don't think anyone genuinely wants to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome game. No one really wants that. Now, another disappointing thing from Nintendo here, in my opinion, Nintendo confirms that Switch 2 Joy-Cons won't feature Hall Effect sticks. Now, what is the Hall Effect? The Hall Effect joystick is a type of controller that utilizes the Hall Effect technology as its core electronic output to determine the joystick's position. Unlike traditional ponymeter joysticks, Hall Effect joysticks offer contactless operation, ensuring a long lifespan. So pretty much, Joy-Con drift is something that we've all experienced, and to be fair, there's drift on PlayStation controllers, Xbox controllers as well. They don't have Hall Effect either. But the reason why you play your games and then your analog sticks start not working in the ways you expect them to work is because they don't have Hall Effect. And everyone was thinking, oh, the Switch 2 will have Hall Effect on their Joy-Cons. Nope, there is no Hall Effect. We don't know how well these Joy-Cons are going to last, but it is going to be problematic. That is for sure. He didn't know there was lawsuits over the Joy-Con drift in the US courts. They were dismissed, but also Nintendo has a feature where you can send in your Joy-Cons to them and then they will repair them for you. But essentially, the original Joy-Cons are not built to last, and I am worried about the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, especially because they're going to be $90. They're, instead of $80, these Joy-Cons are going to be $90, which is a lot of money. So I personally won't be investing in Joy-Cons a lot. Maybe when they release some colors, but at the moment, I'm just going to stick with the two that come with the system and be good on that. The Switch 2 also won't have achievements, which is, normal, but there is going to be achievements in the new in-app with Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. Now, there is a companion app for these Zelda games, and they're going to have app notes in there. They're going to have other features. There's even a map feature in there where you can put different destinations on there and the game will guide you. But there's also achievements in there. However, none of those features are actually going to be in the video game nor on the console. So I do think that's very disappointing because they sort of did achievements halfway, but it's not really connected to your console at all. So you're not going to be getting like trophies or achievements popping up on your screen, which I know some people don't like that, but you can also just turn off those systems. You can do that on like PlayStation and Xbox already. And I love achievements, so I do think that is rather disappointing, but it is what it is. Now, Nintendo has also confirmed that the eShop music won't return for the Switch 2 and probably never will. And this is disappointing, but their reasoning for it is essentially the eShop has a lot of videos that are showcasing games, and essentially they didn't want our eShop music to intrude on that music. But I also think they could just have the music stop when a video plays. I don't know how hard that is to do, but they are also saying that the Switch 2 eShop experience will be a lot faster and smoother, which I do think is a lot more important in general. So at least they're fixing the main issues of the eShop, but for those who wanted catchy music like back in the Wii days, those days are probably never going to happen again. But hey, I prefer a better working eShop than one that has music in it. Now, we learned that the Switch 2 cartridge size is going to be maxed out at 64 gigabytes. And it seems there is no bigger cartridge than that. Now, we do know that CD Projekt Red, the makers of Cyberpunk 2077, will be using the 64 gig cart to hold Cyberpunk Ultimate Edition, which includes the Phantom Liberty expansion, which is actually a really impressive feat, honestly, to fit that all in 64 gigabytes. So that is really cool. But not all Nintendo Switch 2 games will be on the 64 gig carts. Those are apparently more expensive. Also, these carts are going to be designed to be spit out, just like the Switch 1 cart. So essentially, if you have a little kid who's like, oh, I want to eat this piece of plastic, which is your Switch game, well, they're supposed to spit them out. So, hey, I guess parents rejoice, your kid won't choke on a cartridge out here. And also, there was a lot of big drama about the game key cards for Nintendo Switch 2 games. And I don't personally like the idea of this, but at the very least, it's not as bad as we think it is. So essentially, a game key card is a game that doesn't have the actual game on the cartridge. It has a license to it. And when you put the cartridge into your Switch 2, it connects to the internet. It says you have access to it, and then you can download the game. Now, if I give that game to someone else, they will also have access to the game. You don't remove the key from it. The key is the cartridge itself. So you can resell the physical cartridge or give it to someone else to borrow. But there is no physical game on there, and you will need an internet connection to get the game off of the card onto your system. So there is that. And of course, you will need the cartridge still to play the game. It doesn't actually come off of the system, but just to access it, you will need an internet connection in general. Now, Zelda Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition won't include the DLC content with the upgrade. And I think this is actually horrendous. I think this is horrible because they are charging us $70 for Breath of the Wild, right? That is a full price for a game that was a original Switch launch game, right? $70 for like the 4K and all that fun stuff, but they don't include the two $20 DLC packs on it, which is the Master Trials and the Champions Ballad, which I think is very disappointing. And if you want to play those, you will have to download them off the eShop. Now, I don't know if the Switch 1 versions of those DLCs, if you already own them, will work on this. They have not said, but I do think that is very disappointing that this is not a complete edition of Breath of the Wild. If this was a complete edition of Breath of the Wild for $70 and you did not buy those DLCs, I actually think this is a good deal, right? Because that's $40 DLC, and then you have a game, and then you have all the 4K enhancements and better frame rate and all that. I think that's actually worth it for $70 if you've never played the game before. But I do think, you're going to have to spend $70 and an additional $40 for $110 is very disappointing in general. Now, the Switch 2 upgrade packs for Zelda will cost $9.99. So for Tears of the Kingdom and for Breath of the Wild, it is going to be a $10 upgrade if you already own them. $70 for Breath of the Wild, but $80 for Tears of the Kingdom if you don't already own them. Now, if you do have Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion pack, this is the $50 subscription service. If you have that, then these are going to be included in your membership. So I luckily have that, so I'll be able to play these games day one with all the 4K upgrades and better frame rate. So that will be pretty awesome in general. So hey, that's a big W for Nintendo there. Now, a couple of third-party news. If you didn't see, Hades 2 will be a Nintendo Switch 2 console exclusive at launch. Essentially, if you want to play Hades 2 on a console, not a computer, because it's already on computer, but if you want to play Hades 2 on a console, you will need to have Nintendo Switch 2 to play it. Oh, latest update. There you go. The Supergiant Games account has said, claimed the game will also launch on the original Switch. Okay, there you go. There we go. Okay, so this is not as bad. There you go. I totally missed this update. They are launching on the Nintendo Switch 1. Well, this is perfect. Okay, so now everyone can play Hades 2. And guess what? You should play Hades 2. This game is baller, and it's awesome, and it's entering 1.0, so I will probably revisit it then too. Cyberpunk 2077 progress from PS5 to Switch 2 will be transferable. So this is actually awesome. If you already have the game on PS5, like I do, I have the game on PS5. I have a save there. If I want to play the Ultimate Edition that is going to release on Nintendo Switch 2, which is a $70 edition, includes the DLC, I can transfer over my PS5 save to my Switch 2 so I can actually have a portable experience. Now, the only way to have a portable experience if you're going to be playing on your PS5 is to have a PlayStation Portal, but not everyone's going to have a Portal in general. So I think this is an awesome situation to be in. You can also do this transfer for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt if you didn't know, but it's pretty cool. And the last story I want to talk about is the Nintendo's official Switch 2 camera for game chat is 1080p. However, the Piranha Plant Switch 2 camera is 480p. Now, this is a really cool camera. I think this is sick. I'm a big fan. But how do you make a 480p camera in 2025? That is insanely hard to make. Like literally everything is 1080p. But luckily for those who don't want to spend $60 or $50 on a camera or whatever, I think it's $50 for the official. I think this is like $40 or $30. You can use pretty much any other USB-C camera just by attaching it in the top of your Switch. So put your USB-C in there and you have a camera already. So if you have a webcam, most likely it'll be compatible. So you don't need to buy a new camera for your Switch 2, which is pretty nice in general. But there you have it, guys. That is all of the information I have about the Switch 2. Lots of good stuff, a lot of bad stuff, but it's always going to be a mixed bag for a new console. And hopefully we get pre-order soon because I definitely want to get my Mario Kart and, in 6 weeks after that, Donkey Kong. Anyways, guys, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Catch you guys next time. Peace out and have a good one.